Thank you, Senator, for being with us this morning. Senator, you had this long and remarkable career in elected life. Take us way back to the beginning in the 50s or 60s and tell us what got you interested in politics and public service.
Well, first of all, I think people should understand I grew up on the East Side. I went to Christ the King parochial school for 8 years, and then I went to Collinwood High School. And after that, I went to Ohio University, and after that, I went to Ohio State University to get my law degree. My interest in government came while I was in high school. Up until the time I was about a freshman, I wanted to be a doctor because I have osteomyelitis, and a doctor saved my life. And then I realized, like a lot of kids, that I didn't like the sciences that much, or they didn't like me. And so I had to decide and actually prayed over what it is what I should do with the talent God's given me. I mean, I always wanted to know, what am I going to be? What am I going to be? What am I going to be? It was a big thing with me. And I was active in high school. I was in 4 senior plays and ran for president of my class and got elected by 4 votes. And the president of the Key Club. I was in the band, and then I was the comptroller. I was very active, and I think extracurricular activities are really important. But to make a long story short, I decided when I was about 17, because of my activity in the Key Club politics, that I was going to be an elected public official. And some of my classmates said at the time that I predicted someday I would be mayor. And then I went on to Ohio University and was active down there in student government and law school. But I want to point out, it's really important, the extracurricular activities. At OU, I was in student body president and president of the dormitory system in the Circle K. Got a lot of experience there. And then I went to law school, and I was president of my class and president of the Law School Young Republican Club. So all those things are important. Then I came back to Cleveland, got married, and met my wife campaigning for Tom Ireland in 1959, and I was passing out cookies, and she was blowing up balloons. And I became a ward leader. I was a ward leader for 14 years, and worked for other candidates along the line, and then ran for the House of Representatives, got elected, ran for mayor, if you remember.
That's a very little-known fact.
Yeah, I ran for mayor in '71 against Ralph Perk, and he beat the. He did a job on me, yes. Yeah. But when he became mayor, they appointed me county auditor.
That's right.
And then I had to run to retain that seat. And then after that, I did. And then I got elected. I was there for 5 years. Then I got elected county commissioner. And then after that, I ran with Jim Rhodes in '78 and was his lieutenant governor. And then the call came back to Cleveland.
Yes, you didn't become lieutenant governor until January of 1979.
Correct.
And shortly after that, tell us what began to happen.
Well, what began to happen is that when I was out around the state, particularly in this part of the state, people were saying, "What's going on in Cleveland? Things are really bad there. The mayor there, he's really hurting the city and he's hurting the region." It was like, what am I? And I said, what am I supposed to do about it? So anyhow, the truth is that after I got elected lieutenant governor, I pretty much forgot about Cleveland. In other words, the goal was I was going to run for governor after Rhodes couldn't run anymore. And things were so bad here that they had to find somebody. And, their first candidate was Eddie Feehan, who had just been elected county commissioner, beating Seth Taft.
Right. Mary Rose was in the mix, if I recall. Wasn't her name mentioned also?
I don't know if she was. I know Charlie Butts was involved, and I think Basil Russo. There were a lot of people that were interested in it. And for some reason, everybody decided not to run. I think you probably remember, it was Charlie Butts stayed in, didn't he? He was in the primary.
Charlie Butts. And Basil also, I believe,
Basil stayed in the primary.
Yes.
Anyhow, the business community asked me to run. And I was reluctant to do it because I'd already made up my mind that I was going, statewide. And discussed it with my wife. And she was first time that she basically said, I don't think you should do that. We've worked really hard to get you a lieutenant governor, and but finally I convinced her that I was needed more here than I was there, and that I had an obligation to do it. And I said, I won't. I've made it. I've told the business community that I'll run, but you have to pay for the campaign, and you have to promise me that you will help me once I'm elected mayor. Because I'd watched other mayors have their problems slapped in their face, and most of them didn't know what was going on over there, many of them, until they left office. So the business community agreed that they would help me.
And what was Jim Rhodes's reaction?
Rhodes said, "You can be lieutenant governor and you can be mayor." I said, "Come on, governor." He said, no. His attitude was, I think you ought to stay here, but if that's what you want to do, fine. And he came up when he swore me in, and he was supportive.
At the end of the day, you won. And what you inherited when you became mayor, was it as bad as you thought it might be?
It was worse. It was worse. I thought the city was $50 million in a hole, and it turned out that we were $110 million. And I think, Rich Little had the joke out there, will the last person leaving Cleveland turn out the lights? And police vehicles had over 100,000 miles on them. We were in default, the first city in default since the Depression. We couldn't get any credit. People wouldn't give you credit to buy pencils. It was very, very bad. And there was a balkanized situation in the town between city council and the mayor's office. They were constantly fighting. There was a battle between the mayor and the business community. There was a battle between the mayor and the people out in the neighborhoods. I think you remember, there was a story that Bob Weissman, one of the mayor's right-hand persons, hit a nut at a meeting because a nun at a meeting. I mean, it was bad, and there was a lot of racial problems in terms of the police department, accusations of brutality, and they're just that this town was really in a mess, and it needed to have peace.
Tell us briefly about some of the things you did almost immediately.
Well, first of all, my motto in the campaign was, "Together we can do it." Okay, and I meant that. I was dead serious about that. And as I mentioned, I told the business community that I wanted to do the audit. The first thing, though, is we had to get our books straightened out, and our books were inauditable. So I went to the private sector, and we had all the accounting firms and TRW at that time, and Eaton Corporation, a major corporation, all their top financial people came and volunteered to do the audit. And they spent about 12 weeks on it. And Ernst & Young at the time, or whatever they were called, Ernst & Ernst, $35,000. Think about it. It was worth about $400,000. They did it, looked at the books, got things straightened out. And then in the process, I was able to convince the chairman of my committee that was looking for a finance director, because we couldn't find one. Nobody wanted to come to Cleveland. What are you, crazy? And it was like Chicago, or like Detroit today. I mean, Detroit's worse than Cleveland was, but we were pretty much like that to a degree. And Bill Reedy, who was the chairman of the committee, I convinced him to leave his firm for a couple of years to come in and be the finance director. And then the day after the election, I called Del DeWint, who ran the Eaton Corporation. Thank God they're still here. And prior to my election, they had been in touch with the Cleveland and Gun Foundation, and they came up with $250,000 if the business community would match it. So the business community raised from about 200 different sources. It's amazing. Churches gave money to this Operations Improvement Task Force, and we raised $800,000, and then the city put in about $100,000. Make a long story short, we had business people come and look at the 4 groups look at the operation of the city and come back with recommendations on how we could improve the situation.